What's up, WWE Champions Universe? Welcome to Champions Chat, the fastest growing podcast dedicated to the WWE Champions mobile game. I'm Mr. Perfect, Kurt Hennig, and with me, as always, the Nature Boy, Lee Brown. What's up, Lee?
Woo! I think that's trademark. Don't actually. Never mind. I didn't say that. I said whoa, whoa.
So you remember that association, right? Like with Bobby Heenan. That's not fair to foot. That's not fair.
Like, with the tear in my eye, this is the greatest day of my life.
That was probably peak WWE for me. Like the Flair Royal Rumble with Heenan in his corner and Mr. Perfect as his, I don't know,
valet.
Was he injured? Was Kurt Hennig like out on injury during that stead? Is that why he was always around but never in the ring?
I'm not sure. So around that time, the previous administration allegedly had a thing about ages. Like, Macho Man got to a certain age and wasn't allowed to wrestle anymore, but he could be a commentator, blah, blah, blah. Even though, as we saw from his WCW run, he was still in great. I mean, he was still better than half the people half his age. So I don't know. Maybe it was something to do with that. We'd have to Google it or, try to get a hold of Ted DiBiase.
I don't know if you remember this storyline. It was very tawdry. Is that the right word? Tawdry? Would you use the word tawdry to describe what we've seen with Liv and Dom? Kind of spicy, right? Kind of like risque.
Yeah.
Do you remember the storyline where Flair claimed to have secret photos of Elizabeth?
Oh yeah.
And he said he was going to publish them in WWF magazine that
issue
month. And really, there were so he had somehow photoshopped Randy out of all the photos and inserted himself.
Right.
That was, I'm sure in that day and age, they probably just did the photo shoot all together, right? And they're like, okay, you do this pose. Now you do this pose with.
Right.
But I remember when I got that issue in the mail, I thought, whoa, baby, Miss Elizabeth eating strawberries out of Ric Flair's hand. This is the hottest thing my 10-year-old eyes had ever seen at that point.
I am with you.
In my young life, the thought of drinking champagne by the pool at Miss Elizabeth was about as spicy as it gets.
I had some thoughts about Miss Elizabeth when I was 10 years old too. Don't get me wrong. Yeah, I had that issue. That was the closest thing to a Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue that I had to that point in my age.
Now, this is a PG podcast. We'll keep it PG, but I had to take us back to yesteryear for a little nostalgia. Lee, this is arguably one of the bigger weeks in the game all year. I'll say arguably because I'll put up there like Zombie October, Spring Outbreak as probably the number one, arguably, right? The one event. But I think the number two, most anticipated, highest expectations event in the game is usually Santa, Christmas sweaters, Santa Hogan Evo tokens. And they've done it a lot of different ways. But the summer event, kind of Christmas in July, is called Riptmas, right?
Riptmas.
This week is Riptmas in July. And yesterday, in a twist of fate, I think it was yesterday, Scopely gave out a free 3-star Santa Hogan for free in game. So new players got to begin their journey of Santa Hogan. Older players, maybe who missed it, got a claim. And then it transposed into like shards, right? If you already had him at a certain level, you get some Santa Hogan shards. I said that's a big event. I said that's a big moment for a lot of the community. But Lee, I'm wondering if new players actually know how big or how clutch that claim was. You want to talk to that for a little bit? And I've got a series of questions that we're probably just talk through all things Christmas in July, Santa
Right.
Evo tokens, Christmas sweaters, how clutch of a coach he is. And then we've got a really special community spotlight today. So it's going to be a shorter episode with a longer community spotlight. So,
Yeah.
Lee, the folks that claimed Santa Hogan yesterday for the first time, do you think they know how big of a grab that was?
I don't know. I mean, I guess if you're new to the game, you're just seeing this like, oh, okay, there's a Hulk Hogan, hooray! But theoretically, as Santa Hogan is supposed to be, one, he is a vital entourage member. I mean, we'll talk about the requirements to where he becomes vital in a moment, but. Two, if you didn't know, the way that they built Santa Hogan is that he is always one meta ahead. So, like, you claimed him at 3-star silver. He functionally is there on the level of 3-star golds at 3-star silver. So, if you have him at 5-star bronze, he's fighting like a 5-star silver, which means if, if one person in the community, maybe, were to have him at 6-star gold, which I don't think actually you can do because there's not tokens. Like if you get him to, I've seen screenshots of people who have him 6 silver, not me. And so at 6-star gold, he will fight like a 7-star bronze.
Wow.
So he's a
But
key
is
fighter, but you just
wow.
can't get him up. So
I don't think I knew that. So basically Santa Hogan is a perma chase, right? Something
yeah,
you're always and permanently and forever chasing to Evo and to get shards and tokens for, primarily Evo tokens. The shards
right.
don't matter as much because he uses what used to be in game. If you're new to the game, they used to use character specific Evo tokens.
For everybody?
I don't know if it was for everybody. It was certainly for the MLC free character, and they still do that,
They
right?
still do
Like,
that. Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
but there was a point in time where, like, Powerhouse China, for example,
Oh,
she
yeah.
had her own Evo token, and it was hidden in, I think, the Showdown shop exclusively. So, like, it
Right.
was the only way you could level her up. It was the only way was to do a bunch of showdowns, save the currency, and slowly get her built up.
Right.
Same concept
Yep.
has been overlaid into Santa Hogan.
Right. But
Um,
those who are newer aren't going to know like I once you started talking about China, I was like, "Oh, that's right. She did used to have her own tokens." But at that point in the game, I did not have her. When she was the powerhouse female, I didn't have a hope and a prayer of getting her. Now they've changed it, and I got a 6-star silver fuse on her. So, yeah. Well, one of the questions you might get to, and I don't want to get too far ahead. What's up, Sandal? But the issue with Santa Hogan is also the tokens. I
right.
mean, if you're a new player and you got him 3-star silver, but you haven't built up a back catalog of tokens, 3 silver is probably all the farther you're going to take him. And so I would say that last December's Christmas event, people were very disappointed at the number of Santa Hogan tokens that were on offer.
Right.
And we mentioned that in no uncertain terms before this event, as we were being let know just a hair bit early that this event was coming. And what was the number one thing that almost every content creator said was great? Just make sure there's a lot of tokens available. And as of this event, I think for free you can maybe get 50. So as a comparison, for 1 year I have been, or I'm sorry, I've had him almost, I've had him a year and a half to 2 years at 5-star bronze, and I still can't take him 5 silver. So that's a
Wow.
problem. I mean, you should every event be able to take him up at least one rarity, in my opinion.
Yeah. So this is a touchy subject, right? Because people really care about getting their Hogan up. I asked in the chat right now. We're on Twitch. If you're listening to this, later on or
Live, baby,
watching.
live.
Yeah, if you're watching on demand later, I asked, is Santa Hogan the best coach in the game? Right? Does the chat have an opinion on that? And one of our friends, Spider Guard, said, to be honest, after 17K, like I don't really care. Right.
Yep,
But
agreed.
another, Sensei Kreese said, Santa Hogan would be my choice for a 6-star gold partridge.
Yep.
But what they've done with the tokens is highly disappointing. Right. So you see one member of the community saying, more than anyone else
Yeah.
in the entire 500 plus characters. This is who I want at 6 gold if I was given a choice, right? And you have someone else saying, 17K, which would be 6-star bronze with all stars filled and probably coin maxed is how you get them to 17K, if I remember.
Yeah, you have to have all stars filled. You have to have him maxed out. You've got to be on the top end of 5-star bronze to have him at 17K. But once you have him there, Rusty, do you have an announcement to make to the community here today?
Yeah, well, let me read this from Mule 57. So I was talking about this yesterday with Action Mate. A newer player would literally be waiting years to get Santa Hogan to 17K because he only comes up twice a year. Yeah. Let me tell you, friends, I have played this game since year 1. Now, granted, I was free to play for a very, very, very long time, or I was a casual spender for probably until like Piper Nevin came out. That's probably around the time I started spending. I did like my first mega, I think, on Mod Taker weekend.
Wow.
Yeah.
So around the time we started this podcast is what you're saying.
July,
the podcast cost you spend money.
24th, 2024, I got the Evo tokens to take my Santa Hogan to 5-star bronze. Finally. It happened yesterday. And not only that, I had been saving my star fills for Showboat, so I was able to star fill him, and I was able to immediately push him to 17K.
Nice.
It probably, I don't think I'm being dramatic or using hyperbole when I say this. Yesterday was probably the biggest day I've ever had in the game.
That's awesome. I love hearing that.
Yeah. Not only now, here's the, but wait, there's more, right? So not only was I able to take him to 17K, I also was able to shard recruit Julius yesterday. I was also able to 6-star fuse Ozzy yesterday. And then when I leveled up my Santa Hogan, I was able to then evolve my tribute to the troops moment to level 25. So it was like this one midweek event, the dominoes just bam, 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 all because of the showdown and all because of the free Santa Hogan tokens that were available. I didn't spend anything yesterday. I didn't spend anything on this event. Now, obviously, I have spent previously this month to get ahead on Julius, but I honestly think this was the biggest day, the biggest single day I've ever had in the game. Wow. Have you ever had a day like that, Lee, where it's just like, gosh, is there any bigger milestone in the game than taking Santa to 17K?
Well, so let's talk about why this matters for those. You started with those who don't know, right? So let's talk about why this matters for those who don't know. At 17K, Santa Hogan gives you one more MP charge to every color move, which doesn't sound like that much, but they design characters around that. There are a lot of characters that in order to get them to start turn one, primarily in feud, boss battle type modes, you have to have Santa Hogan. Otherwise, you're eating at your first turn, meaning you're swiping random gems or just doing something just to get to the next turn, but you're giving up damage. You're giving, timer on the clock for boss battle. So 17K Santa Hogan is vital. We talk about vital trainers, vital coaches. He is a vital entourage member, 100%, because there's probably maybe a third of the characters in the game that absolutely cannot start loaded turn one without Santa Hogan. Now, to somebody else's point, I think I lost it up there a little bit. Maybe Zandal said, aside from one extra MP. Now, beyond that, beyond 17K, when his new entourage abilities came out last year that were the higher level ones, everybody went, yay, those are incredible, but I'm never going to get there. And that's mostly still true, right? It's not for most people within reach. However, prior to 6 gold meta, when they added him doing 18K flat to all color gems, that was massive. Massive. But no, go ahead.
I was just going to say that, and that's why someone wrote in our chat, he would be the one partridge claim, quote unquote, right? The one, if I could pick anyone, it would be Santa at 6 gold. Because is it still 1 MP? It never shoots up to 2, right? It's 1 MP plus 18K to all gems. Plus, I think it's like 30% to all move damage, all colors. That's
insane.
The best coach in the game, right? I mean, that would be a 5 on our entourage power rating.
It would be. It'd be 100% would be a 5. Because I mean, you like the definition of a 5 is it does something that you don't want to go into a fight without, and that's exactly what Santa is. The only now on the caveat side of things, 30% gem trainers, of which there are now quite a number of on the coaching side. I mean, those are now stronger if you're talking your primary color than 18K flat. But 18K flat hits every color. So you blow up the board with somebody like CM Punk, who hits just random every color gems. That is the way to go. So the reality is, if you're a new player, to summarize this section, then we got a lot in the chat that way to talk about, if you're a new player, get Santa Hogan and pray you can get him to 17K. Pray.
Well, yeah, and no, it's a journey, right? There's a reason I was so stoked to finally do it, is because we are talking literal years it has taken me to do it. He sat there at 4 gold, and I needed it was like 37 tokens or something like that. And I didn't get them last December because they were so difficult to get, right? Lee, do you think we'll ever see I want to just hit this while we're talking about the partridge claim, or like the one person I would want out of anybody, Sensei Kreese said, is, do you think we'll ever see Santa Hogan on the Universal Champions Club pass? Do you think he'll be a prestige claim at some point?
So like the ability to fuse him up, or just like period?
I don't know. I mean, I can't imagine it being a 6 gold claim, right? So it'd probably be, what is a claim? What is the new superstar claim at? 5 star? Where do we claim it at?
Yeah, I think you claim him right at 5-star most of the time. Pretty sure.
Roxanne last week.
Yeah, honestly, I don't remember. I was so excited to get her, and I just took her straight up. She's almost 6 silver now, so I don't even remember what I claimed her at. But we could go back to that video and find out. But either way, if it's 4-star, it's somewhere between 5-star bronze and 5-star gold. Maybe I claimed her 5-star gold.
So yeah, I
think it's 5-star gold.
I mean, I think arguably he could be on the UCC and just have a claim amount that would be commensurate to his worth.
Yeah.
Right? Do you think
like
that would be the
2 million or something?
or whatever, right? Whatever the brain trust decides that he's worth at that level.
Right.
Um, but I would
Interesting.
think that would take a lot of investment. You would probably spend in pulls and in UCC subscription, maybe even more than it would
Yeah,
cost to pursue his Evo tokens over the years.
that's true.
So yeah, yeah, I don't, I'm not trying to whatever, just dream big here, but I think like there's probably a way to do it. There's
Yeah.
probably a way to make him available. Lee, somebody asked in the chat, why wasn't Santa, if this is Santa Hogan week, why wasn't Santa available for the tour and instead it was Immortal Hulk Hogan? I'll give my answer, but I'm curious what your answer would be. I said, well, if we had to do a tour with Santa Hogan, very few in the community would be able to go past like normal mode. Like,
Right.
I don't think with a 5 bronze, I'm not sure how high I could climb in that tour. Right. So then
Yeah.
would I be more frustrated? Yeah. I don't know. What's your thought on that?
No, I think you hit it. I think that's it right there. Is if they did normal, hard, hell mode, the way they normally structure them, if you've got at best a 5-star bronze Santa and you're having to go up against a 6-star gold, you're gonna be so angry. You're gonna be so
Right.
angry. I mean, it was already for many hard enough with those who have Powerhouse Hogan. But I do think it's interesting and funny is the gear that I did not get and chased harder than I'd care to admit yesterday, is Santa gear for Powerhouse Hogan, and it makes Powerhouse Hogan look exactly like Santa Hogan, which I was like, okay, that's kind of odd. Why'd they do that kind of thing? But what I really want from Powerhouse Hogan is gear that makes him look like he's supposed to in the 80s, which is this right here,
Right.
minus the $1 million belt.
Yeah.
This
Give it
is the way
a little
Hogan
yellow.
should look.
Yeah. It's surprising to me. There's not a Hogan in game that wears the trunks.
Right.
All the Hogans wear the old man
The
Hogan.
leotards.
Yeah, and that's what old Hogan wore, probably because
Right.
he didn't want you to see his cellulite and things like that in his legs. But so Lee, you brought up the gear, the Christmas gear. Um, this week there's a Christmas loot, and I did like a 10 pull of it, and I said I didn't spend to get that. I actually spent after. So after I had Santa Hogan, I did a 10 pull to get that Santa's Muscles plate. I discovered
Mm.
that plate on the portal. I didn't
Mm.
have it. I thought a new plate for $20 plus some pulls. Okay, that sounds fun. That sounds good. So I claimed my 10 loot coins and I opened the loot and I think I had like 27 pulls or something insane like that.
Yeah. Have
Um,
you seen my video yet?
yeah, I did. I watched yours, but and so that's this. Okay, so here's the juicy question: like, is any of the Christmas gear actually like a get? Because they seem to be giving it out in droves yesterday, right?
Um, yeah, I mean, some of them are still very good, but the ones that they gave out in droves, were not necessarily. I mean, it was surprising to me because apparently I didn't have Mark Henry's Santa gear. I apparently didn't have Showboat Stone Cold Steve Austin's Christmas gear before this. But when I
Okay.
clicked a 55 poll and saw 83, I went, oh my gosh, what in the world just happened? And it got more and more disappointing as it went. Watch
Yeah.
the video, you'll see my attitude change. But realistically, Becky's gear and Hogan's gear were the two that, if you got those, life
Right.
changing, right? I did not get those. But the reason I went so hard was not necessarily that I was going to get Becky or Hogan's gear, although that would have been so good for my
Right.
heart. It was that functionally has guaranteed me getting Julius today, which functionally
Uh,
guarantees me getting enough midweek prize wall coins by next Monday to get my William Regal gear. One of them. I can't get both. I can't even get the higher level one, but I can at least get one, which Rusty is plus 5 MP to all colors. Not even plus 4, plus 5 MP to all colors. So for me, the get was the domino effect.
whose gear is that? Whose gear does that?
William Regal,
Oh my gosh! And they
plus
can't even give Cody 4 MP tall colors. They give. Oh, come on,
I knew you'd take that bait. Yeah.
come on. Hey, let me ask you two other names. You brought up Hogan and Bex.
Yep.
Um, so what about Barrett? Doesn't Barrett
500% sub
sweater?
damage.
Okay. Does it make him 6-star relevant on any level?
It certainly, I think, puts him in the conversation up to 6 silver, but
Okay.
not. I'd have to. I mean, I haven't looked at him at 6 gold, but I would have to say probably not at 6 gold because again, subs like at this point, there's not a sub in the game that is really 6 gold relevant. Julius is the closest with his sub ability, but honestly, most aren't gonna run him for his sub ability since he can hit 200 million with his other move set. So
So would the same be true then of Edge's Christmas sweater as well?
is it I didn't get that acro edge, that version of acro edge, since there's another one brewed in there,
Right.
until way too late, and so I've never built them up.
I think it does. It just increases the sub percentage, whatever it is, maybe 100% or 200% or something like that.
Yeah.
But so the same would be
Hmm.
true of Acro Edge. Yeah. So okay. So I'm just trying to think. Okay, it's not in this loot, but the Cody Christmas sweater is like big, right? The Tech Cody, because you're increasing his multiplies.
Yep.
Um, do you remember who else came out in that cycle last December? I don't, LA Knight, I think, had a new
Yeah.
Christmas gear as well. Um, so some Christmas gear is fairly relevant, but it sounds like the superstar themselves has to be still relevant beyond the gear, right? Would you say
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, I mean, so since Crease put in the comments section, Mark Henry at 6 star with gear is
Hmm.
spicy. It's actually one I kind of want to check out now because when I got his gear, I was like, what does his gear do? It adds every move, every move that creates botch gems creates 40 more botch gems. So functionally, you're going to hit the whole board with botch gems, and maybe they don't kick out.
That
That would be
final boss
great.
might might be really yeah, legit on him too, because it reduces the opponent's
Yeah,
gem damage. So
maybe tomorrow on stream we'll have to see. We could
yeah,
power
Lee,
rate Santa Hogan. That would get people riled up.
just to infuriate the
Just
community. That would be a
let's look at Santa Hogan at 6 star gold and show you how good he is.
but I think people would watch it and they would just, is it called doom scroll? Where like you watch something hoping it will fail, right?
Yeah.
They just get mad. Like you watch the news hoping, the world is just burning around you. So Lee, I think that's all I have for Riptmas in July.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else to add? I mean, I think we covered everything that was in my show notes. And maybe even a little bit more. But anything else about Ripmus? It is the midweek event this week,
It
right? And
is.
so it
So it'll be
is.
over today, tomorrowish.
What do you shoot? Oh, okay. Here's a good segue. What are you
What?
shooting for on the midweek prize wall? Now that we're into week three, the second part of week three, what are you going for? And have you claimed anything yet this month?
Well, the answer is what I mentioned earlier. No, so this is actually a really good topic. I wish we could spend a little bit more time on than we have today. But the midweek prize wall last month, I got three, four things off of it. I got the Miz
Yeah.
moment, I got the Imperium moment, I got the tribute to the troops moment, I got a
Wow.
couple belts. I mean, it was like candy was flowing. This
Yeah.
month, thank goodness, I once I saw that William Regal's gear was on the prize wall, everything else stopped. I have Regal, I have a Piper plate, I have Master of the Claymore Drew. Regal is no matter what my top character. I said in one video up to 7 star platinum, and somebody said, "Are they really going to release a 7 star Casey Platinum?" And I was like, "I don't know, we'll see." But the reality of it is that you're just catching that. The reality of it is that gear is the most important thing on the prize wall for me. Period. And as I recommended in our prize wall video, if you're after, like, if there's something in there that's a game changer for you, do not get distracted. Do not spend any of your prize wall tokens until you get that main thing. And I'm living by that. The
Mm.
reality is, it took me, compared to last month. I went into the month optimistic because it was like, oh my gosh, if I get everything like prize wall wise, the currency wise that I got last month, I can get William Regal's gear and I can get DDP or not DDP, Jim Neidhart, Hall of Fame Neidhart's gold gear, and maybe
Yeah.
something else, right? But the reality is, I've gone hard this month, and I did this event as well to get Regal's gear, and I like did the math yesterday that before I spent my extra, I did three more $20 polls yesterday, or packages, not to get the polls, and they all sucked, but just to make sure I had everything I needed, so that, like I said, the dominoes, I'll recruit Julius today, which gives me his victory tour for this week, and Tiffy and his victory tour for next week, which gives me almost exactly what I need to get William Regal's gear. And that's it. Like, that's the only thing I'm going to be able to get off that prize wall. And I'm not mad about that. I just wish the tokens flowed like last month. I don't know what I did different, so
Well, yeah, and it may not be you. It may be when they introduced the concept to us, they over-resourced it to get us really in love with it.
yeah.
What's up, WWE Champions Universe? This is Lee from Champions Chat. We've got another community spotlight, and this time we have Flex from Woken. So, Flex, you're a prominent figure in the community. Your faction and faction family, obviously, the one that everybody looks to, the one that everybody's trying to, in a hopefully loving way, take down, right? If you beat Woken in an event, you got bragging rights in the community. So tell me, how does it feel to be this prominent figure that's leading such an amazing set of factions?
For one, thank you for the opportunity to have this platform. Spotlight is not something that I kind of like, whether it's real life or this virtual life that we live in champs. But it's a fun game. It's only as fun. Being competitive and all that, it has a lot of negatives, as you see. But being in a competitive environment is good because it gets some juices flowing, gets you creative about some of the things that you do, builds and all that. But none of it matters if you don't have wonderful, wonderful people to connect with, not just within our three groups, Warriors You're Born, Viper Gorillas, and obviously Woken, but just externally between the groups that we support and the individuals that we support to help me provide through our YouTube channel, TWF Gaming, or elsewhere, just helping in service such as yours, right? There's some really great questions that are out there, and really we're the ones that are the catalyst to those answers. Like, you have some really wonderful people that are brilliant, brilliant people. I can't say that I'm one of the brilliant ones that are there, but I'm happy to be around there to share some of the ideas and some of the concepts that I find along the way. And, the game itself is good. Sometimes it takes nasty turns, but it is something that we enjoy as wrestling or sports entertainment marks and fans. But it is an opportunity for us to kind of exercise some of those competitive juices that we have that some of the games might not provide to the same magnitude.
Yeah. I mean, the community in this game, I've played a number of games. I've said on the streams before, I played Destiny for, actually, I haven't played the new drop for it, which is the finale, but I played it since the alpha. And I mean, there's a very, very select, small group of people that I connect with in that 10 years over that game. And yet this one, there's so many. And as you mentioned, there's rivalries, there's challenges, there's challenging people and challenging conversations, but overall it seems like the community is a good place. Like, what does it look like from your seat to help shape this community into something that is beneficial to all?
So from me being exposed to so many things, positive and negative, I always like to focus on the positive. Sometimes you have to get mired into the negative because people try their best to drag you in, and they do all this weird, nasty online gimmick type stuff that because no accountability behind the screen, right? And
Right.
And all that. So it's kind of sad. Some of the things we saw what happened with the Merrick server, and it's sad. We don't want to see those kind of things, but beneath that and above that, actually above that, I should say, are so many wonderful, wonderful people from around the world. Like, I think we lose sight of the fact that we get to connect with people from literally all across the globe at our fingertips in a moment and play a game
Yeah.
together and be really close and understand what's going on, good and bad times in the real world. We just had some really bad storms going out in Texas. We were
Wow.
all trying to figure out if our faction mates are doing okay. They lost power. They had the storm. So, like, those kind of things are really what brings community together and building bridges versus burning them. And
Right.
and that's something that I really enjoy about this is, like, I don't care what faction somebody's a part of, as long as they're not hostile towards us, towards each other. The rest of it is noise. Like, what is this? What does all this shit mean? Excuse my language. It's just digital things that are going to be outdated within a couple months anyway. Who gives a shit, right?
Right.
Again, excuse my language, but it's the reality is reality. I'm saying it for effect, obviously, but the
Right.
reality is reality. Like a lot of this stuff, what does it mean? Like, I don't go to bed thinking about our leaderboard position. I don't print it. I don't look at it. And that's not what I live for.
Right.
I live for wanting to help people and wanting to do good. And sometimes, that not everybody absorbs it the same way or accepts it the same way. But I always try with all the negativity that's out there and the self-inflicted wounds that people put out there. There's a lot of goodness that's in champs, and there's a lot of really warm and good ideas. And I might not do some of the things that some of the community, the content creators do in terms of how they do builds in turn 2 and turn 5, and some of it becomes champs porn, as you and I have talked about in the past.
Right.
But I love to see their ideas and how they include this play to make this play trigger 3 times, 4 times. It's like it's some wild stuff that we can do in a game that
Right.
is very, very layered. It's
Yeah.
extremely layered, right? This is not the champs of 2020, 2019. It's not even the champs of, December of 2023, right?
Yeah.
We got 6-star gold now. We have this and that. We have all these new ultimate plates. We have all these, there's different modes and the way that things happen. It's just really a fun game to play if you play with the right people and have the right mentality about it, not taking people down, but actually building each other up,
Right.
is where it's fun. And, I talk to people that are in quote unquote rival factions and all, and, we have three groups that thrive and are very well respected with the right people. But ultimately it's what you take out of it that's important here, right? Because you all bring a lot of good to the community. And what does that mean if there's no goodness in there?
Right.
You see what I mean? What good is it if people can't get value out of that, and you can't help them understand the game better and nurture their talent, nurture their creativity within the game? I know, kind of rambling a little bit with it, but it's just
No, that's good.
I just see it from a lot different from a leaderboard position. And quite frankly, I wish leaderboards would go away in a lot
Yeah.
of respect, because it drives the wrong behavior and it drives the wrong mindset for a lot of people. So, and I've said that for years, by the way, way before Woken was anywhere near where it was, and
Right.
Reborn was anywhere where it was, and Viper was anywhere where it was. It's just, I think we should focus on understanding the game mechanics more than what a leaderboard can give us.
Right. Right. So to clarify, are you saying like the leaderboard plus the reward, or the leaderboard should just be hidden, kind of like what's on the portal, where you can see your position, but you don't see necessarily who's number one, who's that's the wrong behavior driving. Talk about that, because I think a lot of people are going to be interested in the fact that the team that hits leaderboard number one most often is like, yeah, the leaderboards are actually not the best thing.
Well, no, I mean, you think about what is quality of life, right? And you hear me say quality of life a lot. I've written it. I've talked about it extensively. Quality of life is important. Like, we're about to have a showdown event, or when we do have showdown events on the weekend,
Right.
they're uncapped. Like, hey, leave me alone. Let me spend time with my family. Let people spend time with their family. Like, what? Here's, you did the thing. You did the activities. You did the faction tasks. All that. Make the rest some other type of activity. Make it driven by people collecting medallions, stuff like that. Cap the events. Let people live their life. Right. It's not like we're gonna stop playing the game just because we play for 5 hours and that's it. Like, we don't have to play for 15 or 20.
Right.
So I think, again, there's that component. But again, the idea is some people can handle competition and others cannot. Right. And you've seen this. So again, it drives different kind of behavior, drives people creating these kinds of illicit ideas of what people are doing to get there. And it was like that before we broke into the top 10. Like, even breaking the top 100 back many years ago was not an easy task for us. And but in terms of what the leaderboard is, I think we need to reimagine what the game is and could be versus competing against each other, and understanding and making more sense of the game mechanics and the characters that are there. Right. So one idea I had was kind of, well, let's talk about boss battle.
Okay.
I despise, and there's an H word there that I can use, but I try to not use that word, but I despise boss battle immensely. I have since the first one. I'll tell you what I like about it first, and I'll tell you why I despise it.
Okay.
I think it's relevant and important. The reason I despise it, right? So I said I would do that first. The reason I despise it is because the race element is ridiculous. There's so many different factors that go along with that. There's how many people you have in your faction that could actually do what's necessary with the right amount of people. Now you need 6-star gold characters, so you can't even do level 23s for a lot of people. So you have those limitations that are preventing people from getting to where they want to go, just simply because they maybe took a break from the game or whatever it might be. Then you have the tech issues. There's always tech glitches with boss battle. Always. Yeah. So if you have something that's a race and you have factions that are stumbling over each other's feet, like our shoes get tied and to each other instead of individually tied, like we're tied like in a potato sack trying to have a race. It's right. Dumb. Beyond the fact of that is it doesn't give any value to it, like 4,000 boss coins versus 3,000, whatever. It doesn't really matter to the grand scheme of it. And then the other side of it is you have this level 23 grind, which again, a lot of factions can't do for the tiebreaker. Some of them rely on that so they can actually max the event. Right. So you have this tiebreaker and it's 28 hours. It's 28 hours. We don't do it. We don't really, I mean, we do some fun grinding here and there, but we don't, it's not, what does it mean? For what?
Right.
Right? It's for a vanity? Who cares? But if we had an event where here's the boss battle, here's where it is, you can have people actually sharing the ideas that they have versus trying to keep them internally.
Right.
Right. And for what? The goodness in the boss battle is that it creates different kind of layers and different kind of ideas that you can incorporate within the game. You need trap gems, yellow gems. You can't use jugs. You can't do this. You can't. Oh, but I can use area moves. Okay, I can use area moves. I can't use individual jugs, but I can use area moves and stuff like that. It gives you something to release that creative outlet, that strategic element in the game that does get lost sometimes, right? And being able to do that with your partners, your mates, and some, if you have partner factions or whatever, being able to do that with them and run with them and test things out, that's really fun and really cool. And that's stuff that you want to do. Maybe not in 1x. Right. Maybe they should make it 2x.
Yeah. I forgot how the game played at 1x until I go back.
Oh my God, it's so bad. It's so bad. It's so bad. It's so bad. And I know people listening are like, well, that's all I can play at is 1.25. I'm sorry.
Sure.
I don't want to sound like a snob, obviously, but
yeah.
The fact of the matter is playing that in 1x and doing this while it's glitching and lagging and you're trying to get a move off and the move can't get off because it glitches and then you lose the whole turn, you got to restart, whatever. Like, the good thing is you get to collaborate with your peers.
Right.
The bad thing is it's glitchy. It has all these things that people cannot do. So there's a lot of factions only have maybe 2 or 3 or 4 people that now have to stay glued to the device to bring all these people along for the ride and not get anything extra for it. Like, that's not fair to them either. They're doing it for their faction. It's important. But some people are on there 15, 20 hours. I remember those days in the early days of boss battle. It's misery.
Yep.
It's just
we
not
actually lost one of our best players over that. In fact, I think he hopped over to some of your factions for a while, but I won't mention his name. But
exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, there was a couple boss battles where 3 people in the faction had the top, the card, the character that was going to hit, and so he carried for 16 straight hours, it seemed, one time, and it's
horrible. I remember talking to him with the female one. I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm doing this. I'm like, please don't do this, this and this. And I'm like, just get back to me after, let me know if it's working for you.
Yeah.
He got back to me like 10 minutes later. He's like, dude, you just, I wish I had known sooner.
Right.
I wish I had known sooner so I could have helped him. Right. I didn't realize he was still going there. I know exactly what you're talking about. Again, great dude.
Yeah.
But the game is not as inclusive. The game mode is not as inclusive as it could be and should be.
Sure.
So that's another thing that kind of irritates me about the mode. And we're 2+ years into this mode, right?
Right.
And we still have a mode that most people can't play. And guess what? Even fewer people can understand. So you have people who are doing it for 16 hours. Another one that does it for 10 gets all the same stuff and disappears. Right. And another one is doing it for 15, 16 hours.
Yeah.
That's bogus, and I've been very, very vocal about that. I don't like the mode. By the way, I like the past feud that we just had. I think it should replace Flash feuds. Those 2 feuds were good. They were inclusive. They were good for people all across because it was a 15 to 18-hour stretch or whatever it was. It allowed a lot of things to be covered. You had a male, you had a female, you had good perks that you earned through the faction midweek. Yes, it was spend related, but you get the idea.
Right.
That was a really fun mode. That was a really good way to reimagine how we did a weekend feud. We can do that with Boss Battle. We should do that with Boss Battle.
Yeah.
So again, when I talk about the game and leaderboard, all we're pushing for what are we doing all this for? And when you lose sight of the fact of everything else, that's the whole idea. I don't look at anybody that is in top 15, top 20, top 30 that are like, hey, you're not as good. No, everyone should deserve a chance to earn something. You should always come out with an event having felt like you earned something or gotten something. That's the way the game should be. And that's hard sometimes, but that's the North Star that we should strive for.
Right.
As people who can try to influence the game or direction or just try to influence certain things, or at least how we think about the game as players, right? Because at the end of it, after all the nonsense and the behind the scenes and all the other stuff, I still have to play the game and earn my spot. There's no freebie for me.
Yep.
There shouldn't be for anybody, right? Everyone has to earn their spot in whatever faction they're in. God bless them.
Yeah.
But, at the end of all that, have to do that. So, anyway.
No, that's great. So let's talk about that, because I think some people are going to be going, okay, well, what does it take to be in the top faction? So I kind of have two questions. You can take whichever one you want. You mentioned Woken, not being in the top even 100 at one point. What did it look like getting to, on average, number one in most events? And then the other question, whichever you want to go first with, is if you're talking to people out there who are going, oh man, I want a better faction, and there's bound to be people who see, okay, there's the number one team, I want to be there. What does it take to be in the number one faction?
So I'll answer in a way that many people might not believe. Never really strove. We never really went for being number one. We never even went for being top 50, really, many years ago. I remember when our faction was 2.3 million roster town, we're like, wow, we just hit 2 million plus. And it was like such a big thing for us back then. We were like a 136 faction or whatever. And man, there's a lot of bumps and bruises and people along the way that want to try to take you down for whatever reason, insecurity, hostility, territorial nonsense, whatever. There's a lot of that still. I mean, people in some events that we don't really push for, like a kickoff tour, we don't really care too much, right? There's no reason to, especially when stuff is manipulated the way that it is on there. There's no reason for it. But like, we don't take a screenshot of that right after and start messaging people and be like, hey, we just be Woken, like, hey, we're the top. Like, it's just it's so silly. It's really nonsensical. Like, I see and people send it to me. It's like, why? It's like, it's pointless. But like, for us, we never really wanted to that. And quite frankly, I tell people a lot of times, I'd rather not be where we are at times, but I am a competitive person in a different way. I try to help as many people as I can. Some don't see that. But I help a lot of factions along the way. We talked about Great J-Men, you're on the list, and that's one of the factions that we love to help. And they're great people. Not every faction wants to be up there. They don't want the headache of it. They don't want the politics that come with it, unfortunately. They don't want all the other stuff that comes along with that. And yeah, there is a little bit more of a time commitment that happens along with that. People think and people push this narrative that we have spend requirements and all this BS. I was like, where they get? I mean, the amount of conspiracy theories that I hear and are brought to me is just like, it's just so befuddling. And so it's sad, to be honest. But no, we don't have spend requirements. We don't have this kind of stuff. We don't force people. We often tell people, get off the game. Tell people. And you know this for a fact because you know the people that I know that I talk to. Right. Some really wonderful people, the guy you mentioned before and others. We don't want anyone carrying the group. We don't want any group of 3 or 4 or 5 people carrying the group. That's not fair. We have people who are free to play and we welcome them in as long as they're willing to do what's necessary at this level that we're at. We don't control the format. We don't control if the event is on cap. We do control if we decide that we want to go for it or not.
Right.
We don't want to grind 28 hours of level 23s. It's not necessary. It's silly. Go have fun with your family. Go enjoy. Go barbecue. Go do something. Go stick your finger in a cigarette lighter. Whatever. Do something else. Get off the game, please. Just get off the game. Right? Because the game does get to us at times, and you shouldn't live in the game. It's a part of our life. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. It is something we do when we check, when we go to the bathroom, when we're on lunch breaks, this and that, going for a walk. We do check it. We look at it. Let's be real. No matter what level we're at, it is something there. And some people are addicted more than most. But addiction is not what we strive. We don't want people who are addicted to the game. We want people who want to play the game and be part of the game and share ideas and be good people. So we don't have faction minimums. We don't have event minimums like that. There's some events we got to be, okay, this is what we need to do, where we need to be at to get to this. Right. If someone's available, but if someone's like, I'm on vacation, we don't move them. We don't rotate any of that kind of stuff. We don't do that. We never did. And people have
Right.
always put pressure on me. It's like, hey, you have these people, they're at 0 in feud. I'm like, so what's your point? Like, well, they're at 0. I'm like, well, eventually you're going to have something in your family or in your life that is going to require 0 on the event, right? Like, well,
Right.
maybe, I don't know, probably. Well, the fact that you're not giving me a straight answer means, yeah, everyone should have that leeway. So we don't do that kind of stuff. We don't believe in asking people what are they going to be their scores for the weekend. Just let people be themselves, like
Right.
anything else. Run it as empower people to be their best self versus telling them how they should be.
Right.
You don't need to
No,
be
that's
told.
great.
You don't need to be told what your backdrop should be. By the way, it's a really great one. I love the nerdy stuff that's behind you. So you
Thanks.
don't need to
Well,
be
we
told to
went
have.
downstairs. If you saw the old version of the podcast years ago, it was, or not years ago. Jeez, I've been doing it this long. It feels like it. But it's my actual nerd stuff is upstairs in my bedroom. But my wife
Yeah,
created a little station, so all of our board games and stuff.
yeah,
But
yeah.
anyway, sorry.
Yeah, no, it's all good stuff. It's the reason I mentioned that is because that's the person behind the podcast and the chat and the game.
Yeah.
There are people behind the screen with real life shit going on. Again, excuse my language. There's real life stuff. So us thinking and they have to be this and do this and do it. No, that's not necessary, right? People have kids, people have lives. They have family members who are sick. Go take time, be with your family. Not gonna get kicked. Not gonna get kicked. We've carried people for months, 6 to 9 months or more. People that have had real life issues. Like that's what you should be doing as a faction.
Right.
Right? Not
Yeah.
obsessing over numbers. If someone is taking advantage, that's a different story. Like we don't want people taking advantage of people who are subsidizing through spend or through gameplay or both. That's not necessary. That's not a good faction teammate. We want people who are good faction members, and quite frankly, that's what we should want across the entire community. Right? We should want those good people that are there, and those are ones we should build around and focus on. So to answer your question and kind of taking the scenic route to
Yeah.
doing that is we have a very different way of approaching these types of things. We respectfully turn people down because we're not looking for roster talent. They're like, well, I have 12 million roster talent. I'm like, and okay, congratulations. I don't really know what that means exactly. What does that mean in terms of where your commitment is to your team? All these kinds of things. Like we have we have a way that we kind of weed out who we want in here or not. We're very progressively minded, positive mindset group. We don't believe in ceilings. We don't believe in that kind of stuff, and we don't want people that are on the game all day long either, right? So that's unhealthy and that burns out, and that's just, it's not fair to that person either.
Right.
You
I
don't
think
want to feed that kind of stuff. So hope that makes sense.
Absolutely. And I think that's a good perception breaker too, because in these spotlight segments we've had now over the last, or will have had by the time this debuts over the last couple of weeks, a couple of, your very, 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 very top factions. And the sentiment with the last one was, we just tell our people, don't be number 100 in our faction in any event. Don't be the bottom guy.
Yep.
And really, don't strive to be in the bottom 10. But that's a very different story. And I think people would assume, being in those top, factions or top faction family that has the top faction, that it's like, oh, if you're not first, you're, Ricky Bobby. You're not first, you're last, Ricky Bobby. And the reality is it's like, it doesn't, I mean, maybe other people have different experiences in there that would say, oh, well, no, this was my experience. Okay, individual experiences is good, but the roadmap, the overall, theme and the trend that happens is, hey, we're here to take care of each other. And that's, I think, not the perspective people would assume. And especially people who have a bad experience, not in your factions, but in other factions where it is like, hey, you got to spend or you're out. You got to play 24 hours or you're out. And we're here saying now, two of the very top factions and the very top faction family overall have now said on this podcast, we actually want to take care of people. So if you're someone who is consistently not hitting and you're blowing off the game and you don't care about it, I mean, that's a different story than somebody who has a legitimate, like, hey, I'm so sorry I can't hit this, but it's my daughter's birthday. And you're saying, I'm not going to say to that person, screw your daughter, forget her 8th birthday, you need to be playing the game. Like that's a very real and very encouraging perspective. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, no, look, again, it is a game. It is an entertainment vehicle. It's a little more in the game for a lot of people, right? Because there's people who invested tens of thousands of dollars into this game. Let's be real. Let's be understanding
Right.
of that. It is, for a lot of people, it is more than just a game, because it is more in the game, right? They're competitive. They want to be there, and they've spent for it. They played for it. They've earned leaderboard positions in feud and all that.
Yeah.
And they, that's what they want, and we want to be there. But you do that through balance. You do that through working together and helping each other out, not through kicking someone who, when the next shiny player comes along and messages you. Like, that's not the way that we go about things, not the way we've ever done it. And quite frankly, the only reason we have, because it was always just Woken, and we still don't do what others do. We aren't a feeder system. We never were. We never intend to be. We just don't believe in it. We believe everybody should eat. That's why you see our groups up there. That's why you see Viper, and people consider, a third string group, quote unquote. You can't see my air quotes, but they consider that. They're not. There's events they've been second, they've been third, ahead of Reborn. There's events that I wish they would be above Woken. I wish that, because that's what I want. I want them all to be successful, and I want them to succeed. And look, in our server, we have other faction leaders in our server, and they see the stuff. They know what's going on in there. They see how we communicate. We have people. There's plenty of visibility in there. There's nothing to hide there. So it's about building community and building bridges versus burning them. And look, people. There are other really strong groups out there. 1% is a phenomenal group. We work Off the Top Rope is a great group. Like, there's some really, really good groups that cater to the individual and their lifestyle. Toxic Mafia and their group is a phenomenal group of people. It really, and I'm not saying that to pander.
Right.
I talk to a lot of people there. I have for a long time. I know Schmeik. I talk to him. I to Abby. Like, really wonderful people in the game and out. It's like, why would you not want to root for them? Why would you?
Right.
For what? So a difference of one token is going to make me hate somebody over somebody else? Who cares? Go. Let's go. Let's help you get up there, because I remember how hard it was. It's not any easier now.
Right.
It's not any easier now being at this level. It's actually harder. I remember even from being from a 6, 7 group to just being a consistent top 5 to go. The reason we have Reborn and Viper is because we didn't want to just kick people out, which we don't do. If we need to move somebody out because of life or whatever, they ask us, like, do you have anybody? I'm like, yeah, we have these 12 partners that we work with, and they'll be able to take care of. This is what they look for, is what they kind of require. Are you okay with this? I just did this yesterday with 2 groups. Now I can mention their name, but he's like, yeah, I have some referrals that don't have this, and this, but I want to be able to bring them somewhere. So I create a group chat with other leaders. I'm like, here you go. Here's a network. That's what it should be about. And again, we didn't want to just exit people from Woken back in the day and just leave them out in the cold, because we knew what we had and what we were building and what our culture is. And culture is most important to us.
Yep.
It always will be. We have not sold out to get to where we are. But that's why Reborn started. And after Reborn, we're like, well, we're kind of doing pretty well. Reborn's a top 50 now, and top 40, top 30, blah, blah. I'm like, there's a whole bigger story for Viper. We can talk about that another day. But we ended up having Viper, and we had this group, and we're like, let's build it up.
Right.
I've been asked to bring other groups into our system many times, and I've rejected it, politely declined it. Still help them, still work with them, because I know how hard it is.
Yeah.
And how frustrating it is. But it's one of those things that we're very blessed to be where we are. We're very blessed to play with the people that we play with, some of the greatest minds in the history of the game, not just currently, but ever. Like, that's really special stuff. And that's really heavy stuff that I think about when I think about the game, which I try not to that often, because we know how consuming that could be. But really, that's why we have our groups. That's why we have 3 to begin with. And I've been offered to bring in 3 or 4 high-ranking groups into the fold. And I'm like, look, I'll help you out. I'll be in your server if you want. I'll give you content, I'll give you ideas for boss battle, this and that, as we can, as we're able to, or feud builds and stuff like that can help you, some defensive stuff and all that. But I just, it's I don't want a 4th at the moment. It's just a little too much, or a 5th and all that. So again, the more people that you can help, the more people that you can do, versus hiding underground and doing seedy stuff and some of the wackiness that we've seen lately. That's really kind of is regressive and setting the community back, is not something that we should be lifting up or giving attention to or spotlighting. We should be doing like some of the other people that you're spotlighting here. And, again, I'm very blessed and grateful to be a part of that. But there's a lot of good that we can do in this game to help each other and help understand, which a lot of people don't do. They'll spend on the game but they won't understand how to use characters, and it becomes
Right.
basically like an art gallery. So who cares? I have 12 7-star gold,
That's a
6-star
great way to
golds,
look at it.
but they don't know how to play them. They don't know how to
Right.
set up the strap. Which he's like, I just got this. I spent $1,000 for this. I'm like, what?
Right.
Why?
Right.
Why didn't you
Right.
say something before you did that? You could have had the
Yep.
person for a quarter of the price if you waited a week. Well, I didn't
Right.
want to wait a week because I really like this person. I'm like, you're not dating the character. You're not dating Trish Stratus. Guess what? Like, I get people have FOMO and they want to collect, and everyone has a different income stream and all that kind of. I get all that kind of stuff, but
Right.
helping people understand the game and seeing it from a higher level sometimes helps. And that's also something that's good because people go outside spend sometimes, and that hurts their own life situation.
Right.
And you don't want to ever see that too. So I always think about that. Again, I mentioned it before. It's there's people behind the screen. There's real
Right.
people with real stuff going on, and the game should be an escape and an avenue for them versus a pitfall.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. That's a good word, man. We could keep going for a while on this. We're coming close on time, but I want to give you a little bit more time before we
Yep.
plug your channels and stuff. Tell me, one thing other than Boss Battle, in the community or in the game that you want to see more of, and one thing you want to see less of. We're open ended wherever you want to take that.
Ooh. What I should want to see less of is accusations and nonsense. I'd love to see
Okay.
I'd love to see less of that going on. I'd love to see people coming together and helping each other and understanding, being grateful for the help that is provided. I'd love to see that. I kind of like to see events that don't have leaderboard in a sense and see how that goes.
Hmm.
Because again, I think that creates and triggers bad behavior and doing other things that are unsavory within the community. Um, Things that I'd like to see are events like we're seeing recently, which, we've shared a lot of ideas, as you know. We shared a lot of ideas that are, not convenient to who we are as a group, right? Where we rank and all that, and just talking about leaderboards. Hey, take away the leaderboards. Like, why would somebody that's three of the top, top 5 types of actions say that? Because
Yeah.
who's it helping at the end of the day? Most of these events are nonsense, but we're starting to see the company, Scopely, we're starting to see the developers, the game designers, the event designers turn a little bit of a corner. And what I mean by that is, like, we have the final week of the last monthly contest, the Canadian month Canadian month was really, really enjoyable. It felt like you actually earned stuff. And last month
Yeah.
overall was really good because you had the month-long prize wall, which is,
Love
a big
it.
request.
Love
We're
it.
getting rid of RNG in as many areas as we can and making the RNG outcomes better. Like, I shouldn't have a case that I had to beat a 6-star silver or 6-star gold with a trash character that's never been revamped, trash character that I can't even use a drip plate on or anything like that. Have to do all this, use all these props, in-game cash, all that, and then my outcome is a crate, and what I get out of that is the equivalent of Darren Young shards. Like, no
Yeah.
disrespect to Darren Young, but like, that's not what I did all this for.
Right.
But now we have these beautiful monthly walls, and we have now this month specifically, we have a weekly showdown event, or whenever they do a showdown, where you can kind of grind for those things and not have to spend for it.
Right.
And play smartly. We have all these different events. The Hall of Fame event, although controversial because the requirements for it to do the
It
blitzes and all,
was.
that leaderboard, not the leaderboard, the faction event, the milestones, which have been really crappy in many events recently, over the last 4 months, really since November, I would say, starting with the Dusty Showdown event. It's been really hit or miss on a lot of these events, really hit or miss. And I've been very vocal about it, as you know. But the milestones in that event, guaranteed 100% gem damage trap. Gimme, gimme, gimme. I don't care who it goes on, but it's guaranteed there. 100% gem damage. The game will always be a gem damage meta, no matter what.
Right.
Even if the move damage is good and bleed is good, gem damage will always win, especially
Right.
in events like Feud where you have to drain HP.
Right.
So those are really amazing things that we got. There's people that got gears that are premium gears, still premium gears, for free.
Yep. I did
Right?
not,
So
by the way. I was sad.
yeah, so it's so we're seeing some really good things. Having dedicated loot for the monthly characters plus previous characters is good. I'm way ahead. I haven't chased Rex Regum or Canadian Icon Trish. I didn't chase him, but I'm way ahead on her. I think I need like 990 for her. I still need like, I don't know, 1500 for him or something like that 2 months in. So we're seeing the pivot and the feedback getting well received, but feedback is only as good as who's giving it. So I'd love to see people provide really good feedback that are just modeling it out and think as business people, right? And whenever I offer an idea, a solution to something, whether it's internally or otherwise, it's like, this is what would make sense.
Yeah.
Like getting the boss battle faction event back. This is how you make it where it still makes sense, get people involved, and it's inclusive. And guess what? We have a boss battle faction event again. It might not be everything that I would have wanted, but having it faction based, like the last feud we just had, is important because it allows everyone to be a part of it versus, hey, I don't have this one. This event sucks. I can't do it. So I'm just going to do 10 million feud and disappear.
Right.
What kind of engagement are you getting from the audience that way when you're alienating your base? So I would like to see more of those things happen, or maybe a league based exchange. Like if someone is a League 9 or League 10, they need the tokens that a level 23, 20 or League 23, 24 doesn't need.
Yeah.
They need the 3-star gold, 4-star gold token. We don't really need that in the higher level league. So again, getting these chests, these daily reward chests, and you're getting wrenches and this and that. And it's like 100 TP. What is 100 TP? What is a level 2 metal going to do for me?
Right.
I have to get 1,000 of these to replace, a tier 5 metal. What's the point? Updated, upgraded. So I like to see more proactivity from the company and updating the faction shop. The showdown shop is now outdated 3 months later because everyone got everything in there. All the moments. Thank you. It's a gift. Beautiful.
Right.
That's great. Let's do something else with that. Let's do moment shards. You heard me say this before, right? Let's do moment shards.
I like that idea.
Right? Let's do that. Okay, so the cherry one is super expensive, super rare. We know you want to keep it rare. Make it hard for me to get, but at least give me an avenue to get it from my earned work from other modes. I grind the showdown. I got so what am I supposed to get? 200 fragments every day? Old Hall of Fame tokens, 3-star. I don't need that. I don't need that. So you have people with 3, 4, 5 million showdown coins. Like they just need to be a little more proactive in doing that. Again, I think the game has turned a corner for sure. I think it's getting better now than it's ever gotten before. I think the community manager, this is not pandering. This is reality. He does get a lot of flack. Some of it is self-inflicted because he's a little snarky. Let's just say a little snarky. But he does work hard. He wants to see things get better, but he's bombarded with negativity all day long. And anybody that's with that kind of would shut down or just start not listening to certain elements or just listening to a handful instead. So that is the reality of the situation. So again, the stuff that I would want to see less of is the nonsense behind the scenes politics and accusations and changing Discord names to be somebody else and all this other nonsense, dumb stuff. And the good stuff that I want to see is people that are engaging with the game, understanding it, learning it, asking questions that are appropriate and not a time vampire. Like somebody's like, well, I got this character. What do I do? It's like, well, what do you think? Use your head a little bit. Think, I don't mind helping you. You don't mind helping. Lee Rusty don't mind helping. Merrick doesn't mind helping. Davey doesn't mind. But what do you think?
Right.
We want to hear what your idea is because you're newer. You don't understand. You don't have any preconceived bias to this. Maybe you have an idea that's better than ours. What do you think?
Right.
So, and as the game continues to mature and gets deeper and more layered, which will create more glitches and more other stuff, and nerfs, it will happen because there's too much going on, as we just saw. But again, I would just like to see the company be a little bit more proactive and not be a low-hanging fruit company in a lot of ways, meaning just try to get people to spend for FOMO versus spending to build or investing to build. So those things. Again, some of this might come up as a little bit of rambling just because there's a lot of ideas I want to get out there and it's kind of hard to kind of compress all those. But
when you get a river going in your brain, it's hard to get it into a fire hose. I understand.
There's just a lot. And again, having done this for so long, like I started doing this many years ago for my commute when I used to work in the city. It was a 2.5 hour, 3 hour commute each way. And it was brutal. So I was just watching Tapjoy videos for 1 in-game cash for 30 seconds. Like this is how much the game has matured. Now you can get a 2x Tapjoy thing, $5. You can get 20,000 in-game cash or 10,000 in-game cash or whatever, or $20 or whatever for that. And I used to be like 1 in-game cash for 30 seconds. It's like that's what I used to do to start Dean's Daily 4 times a day. Be like, I got to do this. I got to do this before because you needed that 10, 20, 30 green TP. Otherwise, it's going to take you 4 hours to farm it.
Right.
So again, I've seen a lot through the game, some bad, a lot of good, and I try to focus on the positive, stay away from the other stuff. I don't mire in that. I don't give attention to it. I'll troll sometimes if I need to, as just
No,
because
really?
just for just for fun and just for giggles, because if it's all in good play, it is what it is. But just
Yeah.
never like hostile or vitriolic about it. But again, stuff like this helps people get a little closer. I know some of the other guests that you have on there, people think we have a combative relationship or whatever, and it's not necessary, and it doesn't need to be the case. But the state of the game itself is better than it was. The other stuff is on us to be better as people, and
That's a
as
good word.
stewards of the game, in my opinion, anyway. So
That's a good word. Well, but I know we're a little past. Actually, I might end up splitting this into two. Just for how we've normally had the segment. But something you said sparked an idea, and I don't know. Maybe one of the top faction leaders can share this as a thought. But you mentioned leagues and league rewards, and and in conjunction with faction, and it got me thinking, like, okay, we have our League 23, League 24, blah blah blah, and you have X number of faction feud, you have to hit X number. What if there was a system like that for the whole faction? Like, I get that there's league tier, blah blah blah. Like, oh,
yeah,
we're a tier 98 faction, whatever. But it means nothing anymore. Like, you don't get any different
yeah,
rewards. You don't whatever. What if there was something for the whole faction to grind towards, like a faction
correct.
league?
Yep.
And then that unlocked rewards. Like, good Lord, TP. I know there always has to be. There has to be something that's narrow in order so that it doesn't feel like, well, I've got everything on it. Like, for me, it used to be tokens, like the stupid striker boot, the one that looks like a,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
That one for me forever was like, oh my gosh, I've got to get those stripper boots. I've got to get those. But like, TP is it now. I mean, I legitimately have. I ran out of red TP again today because I've got to use it for so many things. What if there was a faction based league system where, as a faction, you had to hit, I don't know, I mean, it could be ridiculous, like 10,000 or 20,000 or whatever faction boss battle matches or faction feud wins or whatever. And of course, that's going to benefit your Wokens more than it will your under 100. But if we
But
all
that's all
work
equal, though.
together,
Yeah, that's all. It's not like we're doing anything special or different. It just means that we're playing towards that more than others because we wanted more, and
yeah.
others go up at a different path. But yeah,
Right. And
I
then
mean, would have
if
been
you're
better
done
than
and you got Trish, you got, like Cody this month, but there's still win matches with, and you're going, okay, I can get my faction to that level by,
something to do. Yeah,
increases engagement. Yeah. So I'm claiming that as your idea because you said it and I went,
no,
oh
no,
my
it's shared
gosh,
idea.
that is
Yeah,
exactly the way this should be on set. So
no, it's
another idea to improve. I know some people say, oh, that'd be horrible, but again, I think it'd be amazing. And if you got the more we can do faction based rewards where we're not causing people to have to give up their daughter's birthday,
yeah, and
but
it's not
still have
leaderboard driven.
something to do.
And
Yeah.
it's not leaderboard driven. Isn't that something that we should have had instead of this magnificent protege system that we have? Um,
um, I
yeah.
forgot about that system. I know I am supposed to encourage people towards it. I honestly just, I mean, the people that I know on social who are playing this game are already playing this
Yeah,
game. So anyway,
and
but yeah, that could be
it's
a league based, protege, how do you get your faction to get to X number, it could be upgrade 1 million green moves. I don't know. I'm not going to give them
something.
ideas. I'm
It should be
just,
task based. Tasks are good. Tasks
right.
give something, a foundation for people to strive for. Hey, we just had in the feud. We just had CS faction CSF. Oh, who's
I
gonna
love that.
do Shayna? I was the one doing helping out with Shayna. I didn't enjoy it, but it was
Right.
someone was like, let me help these so everybody else can grind and get their leaderboard stuff and all that. I'll hang
Yeah.
back. I'll do the Shayna stuff. I'll be a little bit slower. I'm sorry because Shayna
Right.
sucks. Excuse my language. She's terrible.
Yeah.
As a character. But again,
In the
I'll
game.
do that, and I'll do what I need to do to max out for
Right.
the group,
Right.
and help out as much as I can. But those are things that make sense.
Right.
And what you can do is unlock stuff in the game by doing that with your group, and that will encourage factions to work more closely together instead of focusing on attacking each other and working
Right.
against each other. It's like, how do you work together? Okay, well, how did you all do this? How did you hit this thing? Did you tell everybody you need to spend 1,000 green TP? No, we didn't do that. We
Right.
just they just got Jade and they spent all this resources
They
on
did it.
Jade or this one or that.
Yeah.
Like, there's stuff that you can do to collaborate. Like we used to have Invasion, which was broken, obviously, but that was a
I
really
did
cool
never get to
way.
see Invasion, so it's always like, oh, remember the days when? And I'm like, oh, I get to do that. But sorry, I cut you off. Keep going. Keep going.
It's a figment of the imagination, right? At this
Right.
point, but I remember playing it. I remember we were not really doing well in a lot of other events, but we did well there because we were very collaborative, but we just didn't have the strength and the depth, and
Right.
um, but we had the communication, so we did well there, right? So, and it was a fun event because you can do different things. Hey, I'll leave my character here. I'll build up this character, put them there. Like it was a really cool experience, and we don't have that in that sense anymore.
Right.
And that's what boss battle is kind of supposed to be, but at
Right.
1x it's kind of dumpy. And it's once you're done, you're kind of done. At least for us, we're kind of done. We
Right.
hit our 40K, we did our thing, we're there, and that's enjoy the weekend. Goodbye.
Right.
But if we can do things where factions unlock things with each other and for each other,
Yeah.
that might stem some of the other illicit activities that are going on behind the scenes, like moving people around too frequently and things like that. It'll just have people
Right.
like, I can't do feud this weekend, but I can do these 30 tasks during my
Right.
week because I work the weekend, but I can do this during the week for you. Like
Yeah.
this is cool things, and give some people some room to breathe. And again, quality of life for me is paramount.
Right.
It just is like there's no reason to be glued to the game all day long.
Right. Right. Which, I mean, an idea like, if a league based system that looked similar to your individual League 23 going to 24, you got to upgrade this many characters. I mean, that would create some of that where people play the game more obsessively. And what I'm about to say will not be popular. But Scopely, if you're listening, and if you implement a league based system like we're talking about for the faction, one of them needs to be something stupid that people are going to talk about and maybe hate on, like win 40,000 matches in any mode with Nia Jax. And you're just like, no, that is the dumbest thing ever. But it gives that, like, there should be something fun and troll that's not ridiculously stupid that anybody could do, but it makes people go, why that? Like I know it's silly, but it actually does increase people's enjoyment. Because it creates conversation, and it also gives you something to band around. Exactly. That's like Michael Scott in The Office. Like sometimes you got to hate the lunch lady kind of thing, or you got to band together against the principal. That'd be like I can't believe we have to use whoever. Nia Jax is my punching bag in the game because she's terrible, as you mentioned. I don't have a drip on my personal account, but I even tried for our video of can you make Nia Jax good. I put a drip on there, and even with a drip, she hit like a feather. So there ironic, you go.
Right?
But, yeah, ironic. Well, we're at time. Actually, like I say, might split it across two, but I want to make sure you get a chance to plug whatever you want to, but it's certainly including the Woken Family YouTube channel. So this is your chance to spotlight whatever content you want people to find after this.
Absolutely. Well, pardon the pun, I'm a big champion of your podcast and your show and the content that you put out there and the growth that you both had, right? It's just don't get sucked in. Don't be gimmicks, obviously, like I always tell you. And I tell you that offline. I tell you that off the record, but I always tell you here, we don't need to be gimmicks here. So I love what you're doing. I love how your server runs. So really encourage people listening to this to go into your server. It's a well-built, well-managed, healthy server. And well modded, at least to the point that I've seen. So kudos to that. So I that's a great server. Bro has a really good server as well. Some of the ones that I'm actively in. So no disrespect to anyone that I'm not in.
Right.
So just more active in those. But if anybody ever needs anything, wants advice, builds, who should I build? What plate should I use on this? What do you think? Our YouTube channel has a lot of great evergreen content. What I mean by evergreen is it's always going to be good. Like this is a good core build for 6-star silver and 6-star gold and blah blah blah.
Right.
The same build for Shotzi at 6-star bronze and silver is the same as 6-star gold, et cetera, et cetera. We probably end up starting startup content on that again, but we've gotten a lot of phenomenal feedback from that. It helped people tremendously understand the game better, how to use wild cards the right way. So the TWF gaming channel is available there. And if you don't mind putting it on the show description, that would be great, just so people can get right down to it. The other thing is I'm available on Discord at FlexDaDon, FlexDaDon. That's not me being Don Corleone or having a gimmick or any of that stuff. People thinking that it's just kind of like Kosher Nosha. It's not that. It's a thing that's in a real life thing. So is Flex. Flex is my name. So outside of this, in terms of like my nickname. So there's no gimmicks there. So those are areas that you can find me. Those are areas that you can go. The really good servers, the content servers that are out there. Plug into community, ask questions, ask the right questions, and be mindful and be respectful of people's time that are taking time to answer that. You all have the power rankings as well, so that could help some people. There's a lot of great content there. Filter what works for you and for your gameplay and for your commitment to the game. Don't be something that you are not. Don't try to be outsized. Don't spend outsized amount if you can't have it. Don't try to grind something that you can't grind and hate the game as a result. We're supposed to enjoy this game. We're supposed to enjoy each other, and the only way to do that is be who we are and play that way. And get out of our comfort zone with certain builds and gameplay and things like that. But you have to enjoy what we're doing here and enjoy the people that you're around, whether they're your faction or not. So that's my plea. That's the only thing that I really have to say there. And again, very, very grateful for not only this opportunity, but the past one we had where I didn't do voice, obviously, or video. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
But no, a phenomenal experience, and I'm happy to talk to anybody anytime with things. So as long as it's good and healthy and productive, not nonsense.
I appreciate that very much. And I appreciate the fact that now, 2 top faction leaders in a row, so to speak. And when I said, like, what would it look like to get into your faction? The answer wasn't get good, son. Like, it's so, no. Again, there's real people behind these. There's real, like, every one of us is facing challenges. And the fact that we pigeonhole each other sometimes to say, oh, that person just does, oh, the blah, blah. Like, that is what creates toxicity in the community. And
a lot of insecurity about that.
Right.
They could only be doing that because they're doing this, or it's not possible for someone to do this, or you can't win if you don't do this. It's like, just relax. Who cares? Just relax. Play.
Reach out to me.
Ask.
I will help you get there. Not, haha, look at me. I'm up there. Yeah, that's great.
Ask. I mean, who else has other faction leaders in their server? Who else has does all these types of things? Literally helps these factions. We have factions that were on the verge of implosion. We refilled them. We helped them find people, brought them together. Brought on with actually other leaders where they can combine and consolidate, like, just to preserve themselves. You don't want to see factions blow up like that. Some that don't deserve it and are really toxic is a different story. I'm not going to get into that, obviously, because it's not necessary. But but there's a lot of really great groups that are out there. It doesn't have to be ours. I mentioned a couple that we work very closely with. 1% off top rope, Murder Mafia, some good people there. Toxic Mafia. There's a lot of wonderful, wonderful groups out there that want to help people do good and understand the game and earn in a different way, right? They might not want to be top 1, top 2, top 3, top 5 is good, top 7 is good. It all goes down to what someone's availability is and what someone's commitment is. So there's no spend requirements or any of that conspiracy theory nonsense.
Well, we'll make sure and put the Woken Family video library link for YouTube in the description. So go ahead and click that. Follow it on YouTube. Reach out to Flex, as he mentioned, in the channels, like if you would like some help. And man, thank you for being a part of this. I really mean it. Thank you. I appreciate it, and it's an honor to get to have you in the conversation.
Honor's all mine. Thank you all very much, and congrats on the success that you've had. Been cheerleading you on for since the beginning. And I will continue to. So thank you. Keep going, keep building, and keep influencing the community. You're doing a phenomenal job.
Thank you.
Well, that was an exciting community spotlight with someone I've always wanted to hear from. Lee, how did it feel to sit down with FlexDaDon?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because remember when we were doing the podcast like months and months and months ago, very early on, and we were picking on what was then, I think, like the top 1 or 2 factions, just joking with them or whatever, and then Flex reached out to you afterwards and was like, "Hey, that was fun. Glad you did that." But now, whether you like them or not, in terms of the faction, Woken is the number 1, number 2 faction in the game. Always. Like, they're always hitting numbers. And so I think the takeaways from that community spotlight are just, I think people will be absolutely surprised to hear that they don't have minimums, that they don't require spending, that, just some of the things you heard in there. So for those of you who are on Twitch, after we crashed horribly. I don't know what's going on with Streamlabs today. And you're going, what are they talking about? Like, we're splicing into the podcast, the community spotlight from Flex, from Woken. And now you're going to have to go back to the podcast or the YouTube version and catch that. So that's it for the spotlights.
Hey, I want to add can I add my little 2 cents to that, Lee?
Please.
And then we'll talk about a little WWE TV. I have consistently been impressed with how much people from Woken and the new ministry, both, just how much they love the game.
Yeah.
They just love to play the game. If there was one consensus, like if I were to say, like, I will make a sweeping generalization about those top factions, and they're always arm wrestling, right? For top spots. Those guys love to play the game. And not only that, they're so generous to the community when you ask those. I mean, if it's a boss battle build, if it's a feud build, because they're in our Discord, members from both communities are actually providing resources to the. We also have a fairly sizable demographic of free-to-play players and new players in our Discord. They're constantly helping them dial in either their roster or their build. And so it's really impressive to me how much they love the game and are willing to help the community. I messaged recently one of the top leaderboard players in the game, and I asked, how do I spend in this event so that I can actually accomplish my goal? Like, I don't just want to spend, I want to spend with the intention of getting this specific result. And that person was so charitable to me. I had never DM'd him before, and they made time, told me, hey, wait till the end of the event till you've scored all that you can, and then start assessing that. Maybe I'm a dummy, but I never considered that, Lee. I was like, right out of the gate, excited to spend, And they're like, no, give it till the end. Give it till the end and then see what you need. Right. So yeah. Right. Now, I know there's salty people in the community, and I get that. And I'm sure there's exceptions. I've just not experienced it. So thanks for doing these community spotlights, because it helps us to see behind the curtain, right? It helps us to see behind the leaderboard curtain of really the people on the other side of the screens and who's back there.
Yeah, and I appreciate everybody who's hopped on with us. We've got a brief pause on community spotlights for a few weeks, and then I've got a few more that are Greg Cherry brand and a couple others that are messaging me to hop on in the next month or so.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear it. Well, as we look at the exciting and real world of professional wrestling, Lee, I don't know that there's a top story right now. The build to SummerSlam is ongoing, but is there a top story? You have a top story? I was going to say some of the recent departures from the company have really surprised me. I mean, Bobby Lashley, for example, who I just thought they've worked him consistently into main event storylines for the last 2-3 years. I know he was out on the injury, I assume, but man, he gone. That's a big name with a pretty sizable following to just disappear. At least that's what I would say is the top story. Is oh, I'm shocked at Bobby going bye-bye, especially when they had been building, kind of making a faction, reestablishing credibility with a threat, feuding with the Final Testament, kind of boosting both factions, making an interesting story between them. And then suddenly he's just gone. So any thoughts on that?
I
do you
saw
have a
somebody post in our Discord, I think it was our Discord, watch the other company is going to have the pain industry show up now all of a sudden, instead of the hurt business. But man, to me, I get that, Bobby had some highlights for a while in the top area, but really since they had Bobby versus Brock, which was the match he came back to have, and they just refused to give it to him forever. And then that build-up just wasn't great. It wasn't like Clash of the Titans level that it should have been.
right?
And the Hurt Business, like I say, that's to me one of the biggest misses in the last decade, is that to me the Hurt Business should have been on the level of the Bloodline, and the two of them should have been warring together, like out war. But that being said, it is what it is, and we'll see. There's been some surprising departures. Becky Lynch hopefully doesn't show up anywhere else. Hopefully she's just off being a mother. But
Yeah.
her being gone, Bobby being gone. I mean, there's some big names.
Last night, I watched a program from the other company.
Uh-oh.
I was not impressed. I did not enjoy it at all.
Right.
And I don't think I'm just uniquely a WWE mark. I mean, like, I tried objectively to see what was going on, and I just not for me. I don't know. So, and some of the talent was former WWE talent that was on the program last night, and I still did not enjoy it. I have a concern, Lee, that I'm not going to enjoy WWE as much the more they continue to evolve this edgy or dare I say it, even rated R kind of label, right?
Yeah.
As they're pushing for more gritty, more sexual content, more profanity, more blood, more violence. I just don't know. I watch this with my kids. It's like our family time show. So maybe I'm one of the only kind of people out there being a-okay with the product right how it is. I don't need the rest of that stuff.
Right.
I don't need. They can. I'd like them to walk up to the line, get near the line, but don't cross the line. And I think the Dominic and Liv story crossed the line a few times with the mid ring mountings and stuff like that. We just didn't need that. We didn't need that.
No, you bring up something, and this is a thought train that just hit the station, so I haven't been riding it long or anything, but let's go back to the Attitude Era, and let's now imagine that the Attitude Era had Netflix. Okay, what would that company have done and not done had
Val
they
Venus
had?
World title reign,
Val Venus would have had an exposed, it rhymes with Venus, and
or him and Godfather would have been like the tag champs or something,
I mean that too. I'm more thinking think of all those moments where they had let's just use the King puppies, right? You wouldn't have gotten them facing away from the camera, right? You would have gotten full on NC-17. I think if they had Netflix in that era. So the question is, will the current leadership? So I was talking with somebody else in the coffee house the other day, and they were talking about seeing live shows because Raw's coming to Denver. We're talking about, can I get tickets? Can I afford anything right now? I don't know. We'll see. But the reality was, I remember I saw a live show years and years ago. It was a dark show, where they didn't record it, anything like that. And when the gloves were off, Ric Flair and Triple H in particular were out there just salty language, and Triple H said some things to people in the audience that nowadays would get you, if it was recorded, you'd be in the hot seat. So I won't repeat it, but it was kind of part and parcel of the product back then.
And no one had smartphones either. There's no record of this stuff ever happening.
Right.
So you could do it. It would help your legend grow without cancel culture ruining you.
Right. Right, absolutely. Yeah, like whew. My wife and I, just quick aside funny story though, but my wife and I in 2009, 2010, something like that, finally watched the movie Cellular, which was Chris Evans's like breakout I'm an action hero kind of guy, and it's all
Okay.
about this woman who's kidnapped and Chris Evans has to save her, but then you find out the bad guy's really who you thought the good guy was, and the
Spoiler.
entire crux of the movie centers around the fact that his cell phone can take video. And it was like shocking back then because this came out 2006. It came out pre-iPhone, right? And so think of that world where if somebody said, "Oh yeah, my cell phone can take video," you'd be like, "Are you from the future or do you have Scrooge McDuck money? Because one of those two has to be true."
Yeah.
Yeah, they could say anything, and now the old rule of thumb was prove it. Which thousand are you going to back that story up? And nobody
Mhm.
would. So anyway,
Crazy.
so the question is, Rusty, I post this over to you.
Right.
If the old regime had Netflix, meaning they could be TVMA, they could be NC-17, they could be X-rated and get away with it, what do you think they would have tried to get away with? And will we see that in the new Netflix era, the new Attitude era?
I think that the TV ratings probably saved them from ruining the company at that point in history.
Yeah.
At that point in history, because they were willing to do anything to get you to watch.
Right.
And being fueled by seventh grade boys, right? So it I and back then I don't think people really thought about the way they're treating females on the show, the degradation,
Yeah.
the humiliation.
Yeah.
I think we've come a long way as a society since then.
Society.
We are living in a society. Yeah, I think what would they have done? As much as they could have possibly gotten away with.
Yeah.
And
this was Jerry Springer reality is what it was.
Yes. And I think it would have run it into the ground because you can't always go bigger, better, more shocking. You peak. You run out of ideas. You turn into Vincent Russo miscommunicating and dropping fake blood. Oops, we missed it 3 times in one show. Like that's nightstick on a pole match, or it turns into some of the things we've seen other companies try to do to make it more salacious and more sensational. And I don't think any organization can keep up with that. So what would it have been like in the Netflix era? It just would have been good, then terrible, terrible, terrible. Which is, I think, what we saw happen in WCW, where it peaked, and now we've got Dennis Rodman versus Karl Malone, and David Arquette is the champion, and
still my world champion.
And woof, to where it's just like, this is terrible. This is terrible. So I don't know. Yeah, that's enough for me being the cranky old guy. What were you going to say was the top story right now when I said...
well, I misunderstood. When you were saying story, I thought you meant program on the show, like what's running. And I was like, Rusty, every week you continue to ignore that CM Punk versus Drew McIntyre is the only thing WWE needs to do. And I would watch the show. But no, I mean, I think, honestly, Liv Morgan and Dominic, CM Punk and Drew, and... what's the other thing? The Bloodline and Cody, although it's the discount dollar store Bloodline. I mean, and actually I like the other characters in the Bloodline better than I liked the OG Bloodline, but with Solo as the head of the table.
Ruthless.
Yeah.
These guys are, it's like they brought ECW to the channel. I mean, they are insane. It feels like Sabu. I mean, that era of wrestling, Sandman versus Tommy Dreamer versus Sabu, like that's who the Fatu family is. They are insane. I don't think they feel pain,
Right.
Jacob Fatu is like the most nimble big man in the business. He's doing stuff, top rope stuff that like, luchadors would normally do. It's really impressive, but they are savage. They're savages.
Speaking of savage, did you see this comment in the
Zandel.
chat? Zandel
Bloodline.
said it's not the bloodline, it's the blood drive.
Yeah, yeah.
Please donate. Please share
Yeah.
your blood. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, no, I think, going into SummerSlam, which is a week from Saturday, we can do our final predictions next week, but I think they're starting to make it feel like a big show. I did see some things about Bailey, who apparently is the women's champion. Like they're actually featuring that somehow. So,
Haven't heard her name in a while. I don't know.
Oh,
I
yeah,
remember
they did a little feature on her.
she was the skinny little thing that liked to hug people, right? In NXT.
Yeah, that's who that was, right? Yeah. Yeah, Leisha Darling, welcome to the chat. Yes, we are just about to finish talking about wrestling, but we're talking every week on the podcast. We start out with the game, and then we transition into talking about what's going on in the real world of professional
Lee,
wrestling.
what's
But
your
yeah,
I want a final take from you.
Okay.
We'll go out the heater. Does Roman come back at SummerSlam?
oh goodness, there's rumors. And I think this is their saving grace because, to be honest, I mean, Cody is doing an admirable job as champion, but as Kevin Nash pointed out on his podcast, where you make money is in the chase. Once the hero conquers, you're bored, and you need to see you need to see that hero get screwed out of
Right.
it or whatever happens. I think they're actually going to invert the formula. And credit to Wrestle Talk because they posed this idea first, and I may have been thinking it, but they expressed it already on their podcast. But here's what needs to happen. So Cody needs to have that moment where he's about to lose the way Roman had been losing, like almost about to lose to Cody. And then Roman needs to come out of the crowd in a black hoodie and save Cody. Save Cody, and then all of a sudden we start Bloodline Civil War because that is interesting to me. Roman is going to come back as the conquering babyface, which is not a position the company tried for decade to get him in that position and could not do it, and now it's going to happen. What do you think?
So Bloodline Civil War would be fantastic. But give up on the hoodie stuff, man. Like, give up on. I always think about what was his name, James Carmella's guy that came out and like took the briefcase.
Oh, Ellsworth, No Chin Music.
First women's Money in the Bank, a man won. Yeah. How offensive! How offensive! But that's what I always think of. It's just like this pathetic, loser in a hoodie interrupts the match, Ellsworth style.
Well, you know what else they would... I mean, if they don't do that, what else are they going to do? Solo's going to be about to spike... Where's my arm? Hold on. There we go. He's going to be about to spike Cody, and Jacob Fatu's going to be holding him or whatever, and then Roman's music is going to hit. I mean, that's the other alternative. And then, you see Roman walk down, and everybody looks at him, and the question is he the third man? Is he going to finish off Cody, and how's this going to work? And then Roman spears Solo, or I mean that's one of two ways they're going to do it, right? If they do it. But I'll be honest, it's interesting. I was watching the WWE documentary that you told me about, the YouTube one for WrestleMania last year, and It was crazy to me how big everything felt then. We had Rock, we had Roman, we had Cody chasing, versus now it feels good. But it doesn't feel like there's that churn there was that made me go, ooh, oh gosh, I hope that I wasn't Team Cody, but now I'm Team Cody. Like, they need to create some insurmountable odds. And I think that Cody transitions out of the Bloodline story, Roman comes in, and then they need somebody to just be that dominant menace. The way that CM Punk and Drew McIntyre go back and forth, Cody needs somebody on that level. I don't know who that would be. Rusty, you can give your thoughts, but Cody needs somebody now.
Yeah, let me just dream book here for a second.
Do it.
Okay.
Love it.
In my dream book, Finn Balor leaves the Judgment Day or transforms the Judgment Day,
Okay.
the Bullet Club, and they take the New Japan lore from the Bullet Club, and they basically have the Bullet Club comes after Cody,
Oh.
and he has to battle his old stable, and they jump and attack and surprise him and all that. And there's some fun returns. There's some Good Brothers and some AJ and some, now we're talking about, right? The Forbidden Door is already being kind of cracked open, peeked open, walked through. Now we have this this level of rumor that begins to spin about, well, if the Bullet Club's in WWE, does that mean now you start naming talent from other companies to say, are they coming over? Are they coming back? Are they going to join this thing? I think the Bullet Club in indie wrestling and in New Japan, and it could be as big as the NWO was once upon a time, when all of the Bullet Club marks converge on the WWE for the first time ever. Yeah. Right? That, to me, that would be like, Balor is a world title contender, and yet he's been buried. Right? He needs to take all that animosity and angst and run the show. And I think he's in position to do it. I think he's in the prime of his career. I think he's a guy that can put up 5-star matches against Cody. And I think AJ Styles, like, we need more of that. Make Cody demonstrate his in-ring fortitude through the best in the business, the best in ring, the best guys. I want to see him just bring back old heat, old feuds from Bullet Club lore, and do it all on the in the big ring for the biggest company. That's what I'm dreaming of, I guess, in my dream book. And to say, how do we take Cody to the next level? Well, we integrate all of the world that he's always been a part of, and tell it on the big stage now.
I like that. Especially if they build something out like, okay, so you've got Cody, AJ, and Finn, all former Bullet Club leaders, not just members, but leaders. But you have like the Bullet Club United, or whatever you want to call it, where it's like the elite, and you can't use that word, of the of the Bullet Club from across the years. Now my question is, okay, Rusty, then if we do that, bleeding back into the Bloodline story, what do we do with the Guerrillas of Destiny? Do they stay Bloodline, or do they go Bullet Club again?
Here's what you can do. You can escalate the feud with the Bloodline until Cody is forced to assemble a team for his protection. He needs people that have his back. He needs people that know him and that he trusts. So Cody becomes the catalyst to start the Bullet Club.
Ooh.
And Finn does the heel turn from out of that, right? And so then it separates from the Bloodline story organically, and then Cody and Finn build, right, to a WrestleMania type match, right?
I love your dream booking, knowing Cody and his affinity for the things that have gone by. They would start that, and then Cody gets turned on, and then Cody reforms the Four Horsemen. And now you've got the Bloodline versus
the Dynasty. Is that what it was called? What was Hunter's group called with Orton?
Oh, Evolution. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. Is, I don't know. The Horsemen would be incredible, but I could see it being more of like Hunter's new group.
Maybe. Maybe, but you got your warring faction, right? So if he gets turned on by whatever we're calling the Bullet Club United here, the Bullet Club Elite Gold. No, they already have that too. Crap. The final Bullet Club. There you go. And then you got
they would sell on WWE.com Bullet Club merch.
Oh my gosh, they'd have to buy the rights though. That's why they just call like AJ and the other two the club, because they don't have the rights to.
Who has the rights? Who has the rights?
I would assume New Japan. That was started in New Japan, and New Japan is friends with the other company, so I think. But you could still get the concept across, even if you can't use. I mean, if you just use the club. Oh, they could call it the Ultimate Champions Club. I got it.
Call it the Prestige Pass.
The Prestige Pass Club.
All
Well,
right,
we've descended into madness, so
let's wrap it up, Lee. We're dreaming big.
we are. Well, we appreciate you guys joining us, and those of you on Twitch, thank you for joining us live. You're also going to want to catch the audio or the YouTube version of the podcast for the community spotlight you missed. But let me know in the comments section if the Four Horsemen were to reform around Cody, who are your other three? And if the Bullet Club, whatever WWE version we could come up with, were to reunite, what would WWE call them, since they don't have the rights to the words Bullet Club? So put those into the comments section. We'll see you live on Twitch again on Friday evening for power rating of someone, because we've already power rated everybody this month, I think. So we'll figure that out. And polls, video, all that kind of stuff. Like the video, subscribe to Champions Chat on all the platforms, and we'll see you next time. Bye.